Welcome to the video lecture series on sociology, and today we'll be talking about social stratification from the chapter 2 of class 11 textbook, and the chapter is terms, concepts and their use in sociology. When we talk about social stratification, it's a form of inequality and it refers to the structured inequalities between groups in society in terms of access to material or rewards. Now, when we talk about social stratification, every individual is subjected to social stratification in their life, whether it is the employment or the health services, whatever is there, all the things are distributed unequally and in a very systematic manner. So, I mean, it's a form of social inequality and it refers to the distinction of social groups that are ranked one above the other in terms of factors such as prestige and wealth. And when we talk about social stratification, there are 4 principles of social stratification. One is that it is present in every society. When we talk about social stratification, whether it's a traditional society or a modern society, it's there in all the societies and it continues from one generation to another. The different classes, different castes which we talk about, this continues from generation to generation, though it keeps changing, but it takes a lot of time to change. So, it passes from one generation to another. Then social stratification is universal but variable. See, it exists everywhere, but the kind of inequalities which are there, the type of inequalities are there, they are different in different societies. And then the social stratification involves beliefs as well as inequality. The society is divided into different stratas based on the inequalities and also based on beliefs. So, these are the basic 4 principles of social stratification. Now, let's talk about the system of stratifications which are there in the world, and there are 4 basic system of stratification. One is slavery, caste, state and class. Now, if we talk about slavery, I mean it is almost eradicated, but still we talk about slavery because we know that there are certain discriminations which are still there, and in one way or the other it still exists in some of the societies. Then there is a caste and state. A state is like when the society is divided on the basis of the land owned by the different group of people, and class. So, first let's come on to the slavery. Slavery is an extreme form of inequality and it is legitimized by the ideology that one group of individuals existed to serve another group, which means that the one individual can literally own the other individual. And if we talk about slavery, it existed sporadically at many times at many places. Now, the 2 examples of slavery at different point of time in history, one is the ancient Greece and Rome, and other one is the southern states of USA in 18th and 19th century. Now, there was a difference between the kind of slavery which was there in ancient Greece and Rome and also in the southern states of USA. As a formal institution, the slavery right now, I mean it's not there, it has been eradicated. There were a number of issues and there were a number of movements related to that, but still in one form or the other it still exists in the different societies. Now, let's come on to the second system of stratification, that is caste. In caste stratification system, individuals' position totally depends on the status attributes ascribed by birth. And this is a very rigid and closed stratification system in the world, and here the position and status of a person is determined by the birth. And when we talk about India, in traditional India, different caste formed hierarchy of social precedence, and each position in caste structure was defined in terms of its purity or pollution relative to others. The belief was that most pure, that was the Brahmin priestly caste, are superior to others. Now, if we talk about caste system in India, I mean at one point of time it was very rigid, but it has gone a considerable change, and the changes was brought about by the urbanization But when we talk about change, changes did take place, but the discrimination was not so easy to do away with. But there is, a lot of discrimination based on, the caste system, which still exists in society. But the working of democracy has affected the caste system. Now, the various castes, they have emerged as the various interest group, and they have actually gained strength. And due to, the democracy, the different castes are, given a lot of importance, and they have a strong role to play in the Indian democracy nowadays. So the entire system has changed, but it has taken a lot of time to change. And it is changing, as we said, when we talk about sociology, nothing is static. When we talk about society, nothing is static, and it keeps evolving. Now let's come on to the class system and the class system of stratification. When we talk about this type of stratification, it's more open and social mobility can occur. Social mobility means that the movement from one class to another class, which is not there in the caste system, or which is very difficult in the caste system. When we talk about classes, there is a chance that the individual can move from one class to another. So which says that there is a possibility of social mobility. So the class is referred to as a hierarchical distinction which exists between individuals of groupings within the society, like middle class, working class, or upper class. An individual class may be determined by his or her occupation, income, or wealth. So this is like about class, and the class is a very open system of stratification. And in India and world over, like this is one of the major way of stratification in society. And since we have actually discussed about the two sociologists and their work, Karl Marx and Weber, for the class also we'll have a little discussion on their work and how they have defined class and how they have used class for the social stratification. Now, the Marx theory of social class are defined by what relation they have to the means of production, which means that the class is divided into two different groups. The one is the owners of means of production, which is like the owners of land and factories, and the second is the owner of nothing but their labor. So these are the two different classes, and the Karl Marx talked about these two classes and the conflict between these two classes. And he said that there are two groups, which is capitalist, that is the class which owns the means of production, and the working class that sells their labor for wages. So these are the two groups, two classes according to Marx theory, the conflict theory. Now, according to Max Weber, he finds social stratification, and he said that the social stratification can happen keeping in view the three major points in a society. One is the class, which is the economic dimension, how the people are earning and the income of those particular people. Second is the status, which is the social dimension, what kind of status they occupy in society. And the third one is the party, that is the political dimension. According to this, he said that the the different groups can be formed in society, and this is his way of describing and telling like this is how the social stratification happens in a society. Now let's have a look at how the functional theory of Max Weber and the conflict theory of Karl Marx differs in stratification. When he talks about inequality in functionalism, it motivates people to fulfill positions that are needed for the survival of the whole. This is that there are different positions, and functionalism theory, as it said and we discussed earlier also, it says that the different parts of the society, they work in coordination with each other. So if in case there is one particular part which is vacant, or so that can be fulfilled. And the conflict theory says that the inequality results when those with the most resources exploit others. This is what conflict theory says. Now, for the class structure, according to functionalism theory, differentiation is essential for a cohesive society. They said that if there is a differentiation, there are different sort of people who are working different jobs, so it is very essential for a cohesive society. And the conflict theory says that the different groups struggle over resources and compete for social advantage. This is the difference between the functionalism theory and the conflict theory as far as the class structure is concerned. Now let's talk about status and role. Now these status and role, these are the twin concepts, and they are many a times used interchangeably. Now when we talk about status, it's a position in a society or in a group. Now status is a special position with defined rights and duties assigned to these positions. For example, when we talk about mother, right, the mother has certain roles and responsibilities. She has certain prerogatives. So we can say that it's a one particular status in a society. When we talk about role, role is very dynamic, and it's a behavioral aspect of status. Role is something which you play, and the status is something which you occupy in a society. Now, status is an institutionalized role. It is a role that has become regularized, standardized and formalized in the society at large, or in any of the specific association or society. Now, if we talk about status in traditional society and modern society, what is the difference? When we talk about traditional societies, these are the smaller societies, simpler societies. So in those societies, there were very few kinds of status were there. But when we talk about the modern societies, there are number of status. We actually as an individual occupy different types of status at different point of time. So which means that any individual at any point of time, they occupy multiple status, the different status, the status as a mother, father, grandparents, status as a student, teachers. These are the different status, and the status we occupy, and these are the multiple status. I mean, it's not that at one point of time we'll have only a one status as one particular person. And this multiple status is known as the status set. This is what we call status set. And there is another concept and another term which is status sequence. Now, what exactly is status sequence? Status sequence is like when we talk about a role of an individual as a child, as a son, as a father, as a grandfather. So what is happening here, that the status is changing, but it is changing sequentially. So we call it a status sequence. And when we talk about status, there are ascribed status, and we talked about this in caste also, because ascribed status are the status which are there by birth, and it are actually assumed involuntarily, like we don't have any control over this, which includes the caste, race, age, it just happens, right? And another one is the achieved status. What is achieved status? The achieved status is something we achieve over a period of time, and we achieve it as per what we do in our life, our achievements, our academic contributions, and it's based on our choice. So this is how we achieve the different status, and this is known as achieved status. And then there is another concept which come in when we talk about sociology, and when we are talking about the different concepts and terms related to sociology, and that is the prestige. The prestige is something which is attached to a status. It's the value of your work, value added to your status. That is what is called prestige. So these are the different terms which we use in sociology. And as a sociologist and as a student of sociologist, you must understand all these terms. And there is a huge differentiation, because as a student, at times when we talk about class, when we talk about caste, when we talk about status, when we talk about the prestige and the different things, we use them interchangeably. But this is not so. Each word, each term has its own meaning. Each term and each word is used in a different context. Now, when we talk about all these things, there is another thing which comes in, is that there is a social control also. When we talk about all these issues, there is a social control which is there in the society, which is very, very important. And regarding social control, we'll be talking in our next lecture. That will be based on the social control. As of now, we talked about the various systems of stratification. We talked about caste, we talked about class, and we talked about slavery also, though it's eradicated, but still it exists in one form or the other. So that's all for now. And as a student of sociology, as we keep saying in all our lectures, that keep observing and keep sharing your findings, whatever you do, whatever you study. And if you want to initiate any debate, you can always share your observations on the Google group which we have created for you. Thank you very much.